Hello, I'm Kristy Wallace, and this is Suddenly I See, a podcast which explores the power of a positive mindset, gratitude, and love in changing your life for the better. Join me as I share the mind hacks, rituals, and choices that have helped me survive and thrive in the face of adversity to arrive at a point where suddenly I see what truly matters in this life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to episode 8, Celebrate the Wins. I'm so excited to be doing this episode because there's lots of good stuff in this one. And as I said in the episode before, it's just nice to be finally sharing the happy and the positive kind of stuff too. So I want to take you back to the time where it was only a couple of weeks before Christmas on our You with Patty on treatment. And it was a hectic few weeks. So we'd actually moved out of our family home because we were doing some renovations. And these were scheduled to take place actually like a week after Patty got diagnosed. And there was just no way known that we could enter a reno and deal with what we were dealing with being in Sydney. So we'd pushed them back to later in the year. And now it was finally time that our renovations were done to the home and we were ready to move back in. And this changed so much for us because we had, it was all old carpet, there was asbestos, there was, all the evils through this house. And I think with what we'd been through with Patty, to be able to redo our space and enter this lounge room and area that felt so new and fresh actually had a huge impact on our mental health and happiness in the home as well. So it was no longer really the place where all the trauma went down for our family, but it was this beautiful fresh start for us. Everything just felt lighter and better when we moved back into that house after we'd done our renovations. Following that, we did a Mercy Dash to Sydney the week before Christmas. Patty was due to have another follow-up with oncology. Like, as I said, nothing gets in the way of chemotherapy. So we had a quick trip up to Sydney for that and then headed back. And to go into Christmas and the New Year period this year without any of the weight from the year before where, we were waiting to see if Dad was going to make it or not. I knew something was wrong with Patty, but we hadn't been diagnosed. There was just so much fear, anxiety, unknown from the Christmas before. But this year, it was just so much better because, yes, Patty was still on treatment and it was still challenging, but we felt like we kind of had that under control a little bit more and we knew we were going to be okay. And so this Christmas was incredible and we just celebrated so much harder with all our family and friends because of what we'd been through in that year. Then it got to the 12th of January, which was the day that Patty was diagnosed the year before. And there's something about anniversaries, no matter what the anniversary is for you, but it's a really challenging time. It's, your body in a way, I genuinely believe, remembers the emotions and the feelings. And so I could sense that I was getting a little bit down and feeling pretty heavy. And I'd put my finger on the fact that I think it was because Patty was diagnosed on that date. And so I knew that, anniversary was approaching and I wasn't sure how to handle it, but I just didn't want to sit at home. And it felt like such a reason to celebrate instead. Like, why would you sit here and be like, oh, this is the day everything turned to shit, when instead you could go out and celebrate. But like this year, we're not in hospital and Patty's happy and healthy at the moment. So's Audrey. We're all together. We're not split in a million directions. There's none of the fear and the horrible, emotions from the year before. So let's celebrate that. And so we did. We went out for dinner that night as a family, just to the pub. And it lit me up in such a way because I just thought, again, that moment of reflection and gratitude on how lucky are we that we get this moment and that we're all together and it's all okay. Because I think this was the part where really the light at the end of the tunnel was there and we could see that all the challenge we'd been through was nearly going to be over. And it was a good enough reason as any to go out and celebrate that night. So we got to the 1st of March in 2018, and this was the day that Patty officially finished chemotherapy after 14 months of being basically weekly chemotherapy, every 6 weeks, trips to Sydney. We had some hiccups along the way with treatment where Patty started having reactions, and so we had to change the therapies that we were on. But we had worked damn hard as a family and with Patty to get to this moment. And so again, we decided, let's go all in, let's celebrate this freaking damn hard. And so I got some cardboard and made this poster that said, "Hip hip hooray, Paddy finishes chemo today." And we attached it to his pram and wheeled him in with balloons. Like, it was the whole thing. But we got to know so many of the staff at the Wagga Hospital. So we felt like it was nice for them to be able to celebrate and share that as well. So, even the admin teams, every time Paddy went in for chemo, we had to essentially be admitted onto the ward. So you had to go and see these poor ladies every week and make them do paperwork when they knew we were just going up for chemo for the day and we weren't actually going to stay. But that was just the process. So, to go and see them and have photos with them and celebrate that this is our last time we were coming to visit them was huge. And then when we got up onto the ward as well, all of the nursing staff in the peds ward were just phenomenal to us. And they were so excited to celebrate this moment with us too. So Fred and I, actually, it was really nice, got to be in the room with Paddy. So we'd kind of taken turns where we could throughout the journey to take Paddy to treatment in Wagga. If I needed a break, Fred would go, or I'd head over as well with Mum most of the time. So I had a support person with me. But just to be Fred and I in that room with Paddy, knowing, we've been through so much in the last 14 months. And here we are with this kid who's incredible, having his last ever treatment. And you think, thank fuck for that, because we were so sick of it. But it was so nice to just, like, the nurse wasn't there for a little bit as well, to just have those moments where we hugged each other and we hugged Paddy. And it really was a moment to stop and reflect on what we'd been through and just how much stronger we were as a couple. We couldn't have done what we did on our own. I think having each other to bounce off and hold each other up is the ultimate key to our success during that year and in life in general. Actually, we just always lean into each other and support where we can. And so that was a really beautiful moment for us as well. Following his final infusion, we then went to the little kids' kind of play area that they have on the peds ward, and all of the nursing staff came in. So the paediatrician who diagnosed Paddy was there to see him have his last treatment. The incredible nurses who trained for years to be able to administer chemotherapy in remote areas so that we don't have to go to Sydney every week, so we don't have to move to Sydney. They were all there. The nurse who was with us on the day we took Paddy to have his MRI and be diagnosed ended up being one of our chemo nurses as well. She was there for his final treatment. These people are so busy and so important, but they all showed up for us and for our kid. And it just was the best celebration. We even had Ellie from Country Hope, which is an amazing regional kids cancer charity that I'll talk about actually in our next episode. But she came along to see us at the end of our journey as well. And I'd made a cake to celebrate, and we just, soaked in what a milestone moment this was for our family and for Paddy. And it was such a beautiful moment for us as well to show our gratitude and thank everyone on that team that made our journey possible and took so many of the stresses out for us along the way and advocated as well so incredibly for us and Paddy when we needed to. We actually bought some beautiful flowers. They're called Diamonds in the Dark, because we just felt like that's what these nurses were for us. In our darkest time, these women just shone and made our life so much better. And so, what a day, like, just to sit and soak in, wow, we've finally done it, and all of these people have been here to help us. And now we get to show our gratitude and our thanks for that. Was a really beautiful day. I think, to me, actually, that nearly meant more than eventually when we would ring the bell, because so much of our treatment happened at Wagga that for me it nearly meant more to share that day with all of those people. We decided to keep partying because I'll admit it, I really love celebrating. I think it's my thing. I'm a bit of a woo girl. If I can cheer someone and, get my woo on, I'm all about it. And so this was no exception for that. And so the next day we had a barbecue picnic in the park with all of our family and friends to just come and say thank you so much for standing by us during this time. Let's share the love. Let's get excited and celebrate this together. And then the next week we went to Mainly Music like we had been doing every Friday, and I made a heap of cupcakes, and we just took a moment again to acknowledge and thank all the team and the other mums at Mainly Music who had loved and cared and supported us, during that 12-month period where life really knocked the wind out of our sails. We kept partying. Following that, we had a couple of weeks off at home, and then we booked a family trip to Kiama Kiama's where my husband had always gone for kind of family holidays, and it was just down the road from where I grew up in Berry. And so for us, there was something really magical and special about going to Kiama and taking our kids there. And so we booked a beautiful 10 days, and our parents came down with us, and Fred's sister and the kids, and we just enjoyed our time together and this feeling of freedom because now we didn't have treatment. And it's amazing how much, you go every Thursday for chemo for 14 months and then suddenly you're not doing that. Life honestly just felt like it opened up in a whole nother level. And so to be able to go and just escape, go on a holiday, feel refreshed, feel like life had a fresh leaf ready to turn over was incredible. Then in April, it got to our opportunity. We had another follow-up appointment up in Sydney, and this is where we got to ring the bell. And so for those that aren't aware, usually when a child's on treatment and they finish the treatment, they have this huge bell that's set up quite strategically, I assume, near the waiting room where all of the oncology clinics take place. And so while we were there with Patty for our trips, there'd occasionally be times where some child got to ring the bell. And as a parent sitting in that room, you just think, I can't wait till it's our turn to ring that bell. One day my kid will ring that bell. It's the ultimate reward and acknowledgement of what you've endured as a family. And so it was our turn to ring the bell. And we decided to do it when it was quieter in the afternoon. Patty was still pretty sensitive to a lot of noise and fanfare kind of thing. So we didn't really want to do it when we had a ward full of kids in waiting rooms and parents and stuff like that. And it was beautiful because it was more intimate with just Fred, Audrey and I. My mum came along. One of my incredible friends from high school, it turns out while we were in Sydney with Patty, we'd caught up with her and she worked in the pharmacy at the kids' hospital and, Small World was the person who quite often would prepare Patty's chemotherapy for us. And so she was in the hospital that day and we told her we were coming. So she came along as well to watch Patty ring the bell and celebrate with us. And then the oncology team come out, your oncology nurses, the incredible Professor Ziegler, who's one of Australia's leading childhood oncologists, was there as well. And then Matt, the music therapist, who from the day we were kind of on the ward back in Sydney, Matt and his team, they come around with different instruments and sing songs and just provide music therapy to kids while they're on the ward. And he was the guy that introduced Patty to little like shaker eggs they're called, but like maracas. And he used to sing songs to Patty and Patty would love it and he'd just shake along. And we often think a lot of the beat and the rhythm that Patty has, which seems like natural now, started really at such a young age in the hospital, just listening to music and having that percussion to join in with. And so Matt comes to the bell ringing ceremony and they have the most beautiful happy end of treatment song where I just see if I can remember it. It's basically a happy end of treatment. It's been a long journey. We're all here to wish you well from your hospital family with lots of hugs or lots of kisses and big hugs too on your special day. Happy end of treatment. Hip, hip, hooray. And then, it's going to make me cry again. And then you get to ring the bell. And it was so cool because the bell had two kind of ringers on it. And so I was holding Patty on one side of the bell and Fred had Audrey on the other side and she got to ring it half of the bell as well. And it felt like that needed to happen because this poor little girl her life had been turned on its head as well for 14 months. And the impact wasn't just Patty's celebration. It was, and God, he was a year old. He didn't know anyway. It was more a significant moment for us as a family to be like, we've done it and we're ringing that bloody bell and we're going to ring it hard because we're done and we're ready just to return to a normal life. And so again, there's a reason they have the bell ringing ceremony and it's because it's there to create hope and inspire other people, but to give parents and families that opportunity to reflect on what they've been through and mark the end of that journey, which is so important. So some takeaways from this episode. First takeaway is that there's always a choice in how you're going to mark challenging milestones. So I guess approaching that anniversary of Patty being diagnosed, I had a choice to just sit and sulk about it and reminisce and remember how horrible it felt and take myself back down that path. Or I had the choice to choose something positive and choose to be with family and friends. And that's what we chose instead. And I've actually done a bit of learning in, more recent times around mental health and positive psychology and well-being. And research is actually showing that when we go through a challenging event, the first 90 seconds, the initial 90 seconds in how we react, we have no control over. That's autopilot. Our body just goes into whatever emotion it needs. But after that 90 seconds, we are actively choosing our emotions around that. So a year later, when it's an anniversary and you start feeling down, you actually have a choice. Like, you're choosing to go back through that memory and choosing to reminisce in that way. And so if you can choose that, you can also choose to focus on a different emotion or, make a different path for yourself in life. Second takeaway is let people in. This was a hard lesson for me initially because I was a bit of a type A control freak who could do everything and would fix everything on her own, which soon proved to be a complete load of, absolute bullshit. And it turns out when you're going through really challenging times, you do need to learn how to let people in. But what was made really clear for me is when we got to the end, all these people that had supported us along the way and that we'd allowed in became also people that we could celebrate with. And it made the party and the experience so much richer because we had so many people invested and so many people along for the ride with us. And to be able to share our relief, excitement, gratitude with them made the experience so much richer than if I'd continued to battle on and do it all myself. So letting people in is a huge takeaway. And the final one is celebrate hard and don't take life for granted. You don't go through the journey that we went on for those 14 months without realizing how precious life is, how precious every little milestone your child achieves, how precious every day with them is. And I don't think often enough in life as parents or people, we stop and just soak in the milestone or stop and reflect on what we've achieved. Stop and think how grateful we are for that moment and all that we have around us. And so celebrating the wins, whether they're big or small, show up for all of them, because it is just such a beautiful opportunity to reflect, acknowledge, and show your gratitude to all the people that have helped get you to that milestone and to that celebration. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's nice to share the happy stories. And from here, I'm really going to be focusing in now on some of the key mind hacks and skills and rituals that I implemented for the 8 years since that. Patty's journey, as I said in one other episode, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so there's a lot of things I've had to do continually over these 8 years to keep myself healthy and well, and so I can show up and be the best version I can for my family. So I look forward to sharing those with you in coming episodes. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope this episode has given you something to reflect on or some tools that you can implement in your own life. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with your family or friends. It would mean so much to me. Remember to stay positive, be grateful, and take each step of the journey with kindness and love in your heart. Until next time, bye.